Could the days of the $100 bill be numbered? As the European Central Bank considers eliminating its highest paper currency, there's a similar call for the U.S. to stop printing any bills higher than $100 to discourage criminal activity. John Carney and Joshua Zumbrin report on this for the Wall Street Journal, and Joshua Zumbrin joins us now from D.C. to discuss. Hi, Josh. Thanks for being with us. Can you tell us who came up with the plan to stop printing the $100 bill?
Well, a number of economists have been circulating this for a long time, but most recently it was called for by none other than Larry Summers, who, was President Obama's top economic advisor early in his presidency, and who was even considered to be chairman of the Federal Reserve, and who was a former Treasury Secretary as well. So suddenly, the fact that Europe is doing something similar, and the fact that someone so prominent has proposed it in the U.S. has given the idea a new look.
And tell us the reason behind this. It's to discourage tax evasion, other criminal activity, correct?
There's three reasons. One is to discourage criminal activity. Who uses $100 bills in day-to-day life? A lot of it's maybe people who are doing things illegal, suitcases full of $100 bills. Another reason is tax evasion. Using cash is an easy way to avoid having to report all your taxes. And the third reason that this is gaining new currency is that Europe and Japan are trying to implement negative interest rates. So what's the big barrier to negative interest rates? It's the fact that if your bank told you they were going to charge you a negative 5% interest rate, you could just go take out all your money in cash. Well, if you get rid of cash, then there's nothing to stop the banking systems from implementing those negative rates.
So is there any serious call to get rid of cash altogether?
Yeah, I mean, Larry Summers isn't calling for that, but there are economists and tax evasion experts and kind of anti-financial crimes and terrorist financing people who think that would be an appropriate step to eventually take.
I can see how that would make some sense. Now, getting back to the $100 bill, is this something being seriously considered by the Treasury Department?
There's no signs that the Treasury is seriously considering this at the moment. But, Larry Summers is somebody who used to be in charge of the Treasury. He has the kind of background that a future president could look to. So there's reason to think that serious economists are starting to think about this, and that maybe it's just a matter of time before the Treasury takes the idea seriously as well.
And the idea would be to simply stop printing any future $100 bills. But what about all of those $100 bills that are already out there?
Yeah, that would propose a real challenge to the initiative. I mean, the U.S. has done something similar. In 1969, they stopped printing $500, $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000 bills, but they didn't make them illegal, and so a lot of those bills are still floating around there. There's still legal tender if you happen to have one. The problem with $100 bills is that there's over $1 trillion of $100 bills floating around in the world. So even if you stop printing them, these bills, a lot of them would linger around for a very, very long time, and criminals could continue to use them.
So is there any reason to not stop printing the $100 bill? Do economists say there could be any negative repercussions on the economy if that happens?
Well, clearly the cash is used by a lot of people, so there'd be a lot of unforeseen consequences from getting rid of it, because it's possible we don't understand all the ways that people use it. One way that it's pretty clear that some people use $100 bills is that people in foreign countries outside the U.S. often use them when their own country is having a currency crisis. When the Argentine peso is collapsing, a lot of people in Argentina will try to get their hands on $100 bills. And so it's interesting to think about, one side effect of this is that it might make a currency crisis in Argentina worse.
Right.
That's kind of an interesting problem to think about. So there's a lot of things like that that could be very unexpected. Another one I'll mention real quickly is that immigrants and lower income people who don't use traditional banks, maybe because they can't afford the fees or don't have the account minimums, they rely on cash a lot more heavily too. If you take cash away, then how are they going to be able to use a traditional banking system without getting clobbered by the fees?
All good points. You've certainly given us lots of food for thought, Joshua. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks for having me.